Hey guys, it's your boy Toki here with another Zero Death Strategy Guide for Heroic Sanctum of Domination. Today we'll be talking about Sylvanas Windrunner on Heroic difficulty. Sylvanas Windrunner is a 3-phase fight. It's quite a long fight, so we'll get 2 heroes this fight, and there's also some pretty strict DPS checks. So with that in mind, we will be using standard healing composition on this boss, so depending on your raid size, it'll be a 226, a 239. We might actually move to have a couple extra DPS as well, so maybe a 2310, 2311 could definitely be in the cards. But in any case, let's go ahead and jump into phase 1 here. Phase 1's relatively simple. There'll be lines and circles on the ground that you just have to dodge. Occasionally she'll cast her Veil of Darkness, which is a big black AoE around her, which you just run out of. She'll also shoot random people with the barbed arrow, and that'll give you a stack of a bleed debuff, and the only way to clear it is to get hit by one of her chain arrows. And essentially what you'll see is periodically throughout the fight she'll shoot her arrows, and obviously you don't stand in the swirly from the hit. Once they land, they have a couple yard AoE around them that if you get pulled into, you get instantly killed. And they will attach a chain to the nearest person, which will slowly begin dragging you in towards that AoE circle of death. And so when that chain goes on you, all of your bleed stacks will clear, but someone else, or if you have ranged abilities, you potentially could as well, will have to kill your chained arrow. Now you can walk next to other people's arrow without worry, so melee can help other people clear their arrows. They just can't clear their own. And so it's just a pretty simple rinse and repeat mechanic to get the bleeds off of you. Another mechanic in phase 1, which you'll see throughout the other phases, is Wailing Arrow. She'll target one of the tanks with an arrow. They'll get a big AoE around them. They'll have to run this out of the raid because the damage it does drops off with distance. And then at the end of the phase, she will shoot a bunch of chains and become immune to damage, and basically you just have to kill all the chains and wait for RP to stop, and then we'll go to phase 2. This is phase 2, and so in phase 2 we'll start off on this bottom platform down here, and then Jaina or Thrall will begin to make bridges across. At first we'll just have this one bridge, and I left this circle here just as a note to everyone that there are holes in the middle of this bridge that you have to watch out for. You absolutely can, and if you're not careful you will fall through to your death, and because of the tight DPS check, can't really afford anyone dying on this fight, so make sure you don't do something silly and end up in the maw here. And so after these bridges are made, I'm just going to go ahead and reduce this down to 1 symbol so it's easier to see. So after these bridges are made, we honestly have all the time in the world. You don't need to rush. You don't need to have movement speed increase. And in fact, it's almost worse that you do, because Sylvanas will be flying out in the open. I'm going to go ahead and take this circle now back, and what she'll do is she'll do a circle around her, and it'll look something like this. And I'm just going to do part of the circle here. And so she'll shoot out these little black debuff circles, and essentially what you have to do is position yourself in between them so that they fly by you and don't hit you. If you have a movement speed increase on you, you'll actually end up like here when she does it, which is really hard to dodge them going sideways. If you don't have movement speed, you'll end up here, which is a lot easier to deal with and a lot easier to dodge. So it's almost better that you don't use movement increasing abilities. And she'll do this multiple times. So she'll do this here on the bridge. You'll come up here. She'll do it again. She'll do it again over here. She might do it over here on this bridge, right? And then eventually she'll sit here and she'll start to cast Ruin. And essentially it's an AoE that if we don't get to her in time, we'll just wipe the raid. But again, we have infinite time crossing these bridges. we don't really need a ton of movement speed increases. The only time we really should be roaring is on this bridge in particular, because as she's casting it, we can start beating on her. And someone's going to call, who actually gets that interrupt cast, because we don't want to interrupt it right away. We want to wait as long as we can to get as much damage as we possibly can on her before we interrupt. So don't just knee-jerk interrupt unless it's called for. Okay. As she's there, she will be casting her daggers on people, which will cause them to take dot damage. I'll go away over time. She'll also have her Veil of Darkness. It's kind of similar to the first phase Veil of Darkness, except this time it's not just around her. It'll trigger around people in the raid, and it'll just stay wherever they are. And so this we try to bait as best as we can. So we ask all the range and all the melee and everyone to stack really close here. And then she'll cast her Veil. And in this phase, it's a bit smaller, but again, it happens multiple times. And so you'll get like a Veil here, a Veil here, a Veil here, a Veil here, right? So as soon as it comes out, we make sure no one moves early, and then we roar, and as a group we run out. Okay. And why is it important that we stack like this? So, as an example, if most people are stacked there, and you've got a couple ranged over here just trying to get as much uptime as they can, and they don't want to have to worry about the ability and whatnot. So you might get the Veil it'll come like this, right? And then it'll come on top of the range out here. And so these melee folks, they're probably going to get hit by it and die. And so really critical that everybody stacks up before that cast goes out. Okay. After that cast, typically is when she's going to do her Banshee Wail, and essentially what that does is around every person, there's going to be just a small, it's probably a 5-yard AoE, and so you just have to spread out from all of each other when that comes out. After those are done and we get some time to beat on her, she will start flying down to her next platform. And it ends up being this platform down here, so we'll go ahead and make another one of these guys like this, and then we would come down here, obviously dodge the circles that come out, and this is when we get our first ad phase. And switch over to this, and so this is where she is. We're just looking at the same view, so we run across our platform here, and then there's going to be a bunch of ads that spawn down here. Okay. Priority on these ads are to kill the orbs, which actually don't spawn in this set, judges, which do spawn in this set, and then summoners, which do not spawn in this set. So we'll beat on the ads and AoE them down and such. She will continue to cast her Veil of Darkness, and so we'll try to stack up as best as we can, and then roar out. We might go this way, you might go this way, wherever's safe. It's a bit more chaotic, we're a bit more spread out here on this platform, but usually it ends up okay as long as we get a speed increasing ability there. After we kill those ads, Jane, our Thrall, will make another bridge. She'll come over here and begin to cast Raise again. We'll run across and interrupt when we can. Again, ads will spawn on this platform. On this particular platform, we will get summoners and we will get orbs, and so orbs are first priority. And essentially, they're just little white orbs that spawn, and you will get 4 or 5 of them. And the summoner casts the ability that spawns them. And essentially, the longer they're alive, the more damage they do when they die. And so when we kill an orb, it does a big raid-wide damage thing. But the longer they're up, the bigger that damage is, which is why orbs are always #1 priority. So we keep that raid damage to a manageable level. After that, we kill the summoners and the judges, and then another bridge comes up, and we go across. And so this is the bridge that we just crossed here. And so we'll end up on this third platform here, and this will be our last wave of mobs. Sylvie will be over here. She'll, again, cast the black circles that you have to dodge. When we're here, there will be orbs and summoners. This is probably the hardest ad set. And we'll take care of them. Once they're dead, we'll cross down here. Sylvanas will be down here. We'll get some time to beat on her. Once we beat on her, we'll be transported to the third phase. So with all that in mind, and these 3 ad spots, right? And so it's kind of going back. There's 1 ad spot here. There's 1 ad spot on, let's do a different color. We'll do square, so you can see the continuation here, right? So this is square. And then there's this other ad spot, and then we'll call it triangle over here. And then this is where X is from the prior screen. So where do you want to use your cooldowns? Well, Sylv sits here for a while. This is a good place we can get damage on her. These ads tend to be pretty easy. These ads are probably medium ads, and these X ads, this next screen, these X ads here, probably the hardest ad set that we have. So I would consider using 3 minutes or 2 minutes here, or down here at Sylv's final place. And then, you know, before that, you might want to consider using a cooldown here, or here to help with these ad sets. Okay, so that's the second phase. It's really not that hard. First phase really isn't that hard. The key is, you know, don't losing people to any of the silly mechanics that you can avoid here. And if we get to a clean phase 3, it makes it so much more doable. So here's a map of phase 3, and this is just a map of the entire area, and I've labeled the platforms 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we'll start on platform 1, and our path is just going to be in numerical order, right? So we're going to start at 1, we're going to go to 2, after 2's done, we're going to go to 3, and then obviously we're going to go to 4 as well. Okay, so that's our path. And so let's take a little bit of a closer look at platform 1, because this is really where the fight gets hard. And I should say that, you know, dying to easy mechanics in the earlier phases can be really frustrating to groups because it just takes so freaking long to get to the actual hard phase. So make sure you're careful with your mechanics, and just, you know, pay extra attention that you're not dying to stupid shit, because we really can't afford the battle reses. We need them for this last phase. Okay, so without further ado, phase 3, the hard phase, right? So these 2 items here, Banshee's Curse and Banshee's Fury, are pretty related. Occasionally throughout this fight, she's going to shoot out arrows, and they're going to leave random black puddles kind of throughout the area, right? And typically, we like our tanks to go around and collect them. And so if you run over the puddle, it'll disappear, and then you'll get a stack of Banshee's Curse, and then you can run over another one and get 2 stacks, another one and 3 stacks, and so on and so forth, right, until you gobble them all up and there's no more black circles, right? Now, the key here is that none of the DPS pick those up. And why is that? Well, eventually she's going to cast Banshee's Fury, and for every stack of these that you have on you, it's going to do 10,000 extra damage to the raid. And so it's important you don't have these on you, because the tank is going to come over here, call for a dispel, and all of those puddles that they picked up are just going to explode off of them as the dispel goes away. Okay, and it's going to look something like this, right? And then the tank's going to run out of there. You have a couple seconds to move out of the puddles before you pick them back up again. And we're going to do this, you know, a couple seconds before Banshee's Fury happens. And so, you know, if you're over here DPSing, and you accidentally stepped over one of the puddles earlier, you know, we might not have an extra dispel for you, one. And if we do, say we do, and you had a couple puddles pop off, well, okay, they fall down. Well, maybe there's a warlock or someone that accidentally runs over them after we dispelled you, and now we have no dispels left, and we're going to get hit by an extra 20,000 during that AoE. And so I guess for an average player, an average DPS, the one thing that's going to wipe us is accidentally picking up these damn puddles. It's a huge deal that you don't pick up the puddles. That is the number one thing that you want to focus on in this phase, is not picking up these puddles or these debuffs. Because even if one person does, it could wipe the whole raid very easily. And first platform, it's not a big deal, but as you'll see, as we go through the different platforms, the amount of puddles on the ground get bigger and bigger, because she not only shoots the first platform with those puddle arrows, she shoots every platform with those puddle arrows. And so eventually there's just going to be a ton of them everywhere. So really, really critical that you pay very close attention to where those puddles are and you don't step in them. Okay, making this even more difficult, she'll have her 2 other AoEs that require spread. So she'll have Veil of Darkness. That'll go on 2 random people. It's basically an instant cast, so you just have to pre-spread for it. Again, it does damage, and it also puts a huge healing reduction shield on someone. And if you cleave someone else with it, you both get it. So it's a really big deal that we pre-spread for that. That also will wipe people because they just can't get healing. And then, of course, the Banshee Whale, which is the little white circle that goes around everybody that you have to pre-spread for. And so, that obviously becomes hard if there's random puddles all through here, because it really restricts your movement. And so that's why this fight typically is easier with less people. But again, doing those mechanics, number one thing to focus on, do not pick up those puddles and spread so you don't trigger those mechanics onto other people. Okay, the last mechanic that we need to talk about in this phase is Wailing Arrow. And so, previously we talked about it in phase 1, where there's a tank mechanic, right? Debuff goes on a tank, they run to their side, and the damage goes down by distance. Well, in this phase, she targets 3 people with it, and she'll shoot them in consecutive order. Okay, so we'll just throw out a monk and a priest and a tank. She always goes on a tank first. And so you're always going to move towards platform 2 if you have it, right? So the tank's going to move, and then the next person in line is going to get ready. So say it's the monk. The monk's going to sit here and wait. She's going to shoot the arrow and hit the tank. As the arrow hits the tank, the monk's going to go to platform 2. The tank's going to come back to platform 1. And the priest is going to get ready. She's going to shoot another arrow and hit the monk. The monk's going to come back to platform 1. The priest is going to go to platform 2. She's going to shoot an arrow and hit the priest, and then the priest is going to come back. Okay, so it has to be that staggered thing. If the tank's over there and the monk comes over too early, well, guess what? The monk's dead. And so you guys just have to be really careful about that. And if you blow up a Wailing Arrow on the platform, then really good chance you're going to wipe the raid there too. So that's very important that you get that timing down correctly as well. And then eventually she'll just destroy this whole platform, and so we'll all move to platform 2, and then we'll rinse and repeat this on platform 2 until she destroys that platform, and then go to platform 3 and platform 4. And this is a DPS check. You got to get her to below 50% before she kills all the platforms. Otherwise you wipe, because you got nowhere to stand. So that's the Heroic Sylvanas fight. I highly recommend you watch your favorite streamer going over these and actually seeing the mechanics in action, and maybe even looking up a raid team's kill, especially in phase 3, because really that is the hardest phase by far. Phase 1 is just incredibly easy. Phase 2 is relatively easy as well. I would put them on par with Terragru, or even easier than Terragru. But phase 3 is really intense, and that is something that you want to know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing before you get to it, because it's going to take us 10-12 minutes to get there. And so the wipes are pretty long on this fight. You do not want to not know the mechanics and just figure them out after you're here. It's a really bad idea. So anyway, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate you tuning in here, and look forward to killing Heroic Sylv with you.